What is going on, y'all? Welcome to the Mission Ready Men briefing right here on the SHR Media Network, where masculinity has not been recalled and faith has not been neutered. Today is Tuesday, January 20th, and this is not just about politics. It is spiritual warfare and suicidal empathy dressed up as progress. So we are done pretending, we're done pulling punches, and we're never gonna apologize. If you're looking for weighted blankets and a safe space, you are in the absolute wrong place. So we got a lot to get into. We got a lot to get into, and we're probably gonna be hanging out in Minneapolis for the bulk of the show. I got a ton of stuff to get to. I don't even know if I'm going to get through it all, but let's go ahead and get after it. Minneapolis is not a warning signal anymore. Minneapolis is the endgame. It is progressive rule after the excuses run out. When ideology replaces leadership and enforcement becomes optional, accountability disappears, there are no guardrails, there are no consequences. Minneapolis is the final boss, fully implemented and fully exposed. And it has really shown out lately, and I'm just thankful that there are people out there who are willing to expose it the way it has been over the past few months now, really. But Minneapolis is not a struggling city. Minnesota is not a struggling state. It is operating as designed. We've had years of defund the police rhetoric, moral relativism, excusing violence because reasons. I mean, this is the left's playbook. What we're seeing in Minneapolis is what the left wants. It's a wish list. It is every one of their desires come to fruition, except for obviously ICE, the ICE presence, which we'll get to. But this ideology and these circumstances have produced a city and a state, really, where mobs well, I shouldn't say state, because there are some places in Minnesota that absolutely can't stand what's happening. But it's produced a city where mobs are enforcing their ideology. Police are being told to stand down by a feckless soy boy mayor. Unless, of course, he wants them to fight ICE agents. Victims are just completely thrown by the wayside. Victims don't matter to these people. This is not happening by accident. This is chaos by design. We got some people in the chat, and this one from my friend Sackhead Sean, soy queen. Oh yes, that is absolutely hilarious. Thank you all for being in the chat. I really appreciate it. And yeah, BZ, I decided to get with the program and check it out. We'll see if it pays off. Here we go. Oh yeah, it seems to be paying off. as we can see in the chat. But getting back to it, as I said, this is chaos by design. They crossed the line from instability into normalized lawlessness, normalized madness. They didn't lose control. They just rejected the idea that control was necessary. And some of the things that we can get into. Let's go ahead and do that. There's an activist, and I believe he's running for office somewhere. I'm not exactly sure where, but a guy by the name of Jake Lang. He and say what you want about him. I know that he's a January 6er. Even people who were incarcerated with him for January 6th don't want anything to do with him. I don't know that much about him. I didn't really hear about him until this incident. I had no idea who he was. I still really don't know much about him. But the issue is not what he stands for. The issue is not what he was saying. The issue is that he was attacked viciously, and there doesn't seem to be any outcry for it. Let's we got a couple of videos here of his attack. Let's go ahead and take a look at one of them. Yeah, here we go. He was viciously attacked, and a lot of leftists online, and even some people on the right who don't particularly like him, they have stopped short of saying he got what he deserved. The left has been saying that incessantly because they don't like what he says. And some of the things that I've heard about what he said, I don't agree with. Some things I do. And so regardless of what you feel about him, he didn't deserve this. So let's take a look at that. By a mom. And he's dragged away. Later on, there's a video of him in his vehicle trying to get away. And let's take a look at that.
Hey, stop. Let's look. Wait, let them go. Let them go. Drive the car. Leave it up. No. Y'all just let him leave. It's not working. Hey, stop. Hey, let him out. Let him out.
Now, as I said, whatever you think of Jake Long is irrelevant. It's really irrelevant because that's illegal. That was assault. And it turns out that he was, they tried to stab him at one point. He was wearing a tactical vest that he says stop the blade. But there's also reports that he suffered blunt force trauma, and there's a picture of a huge gash on the top of his head. Whatever you think of him, is irrelevant. Because just turn that around. If that had been some leftist activist who was out there, what would the reaction be? They would be calling for arrests. They would be calling for everyone involved to be prosecuted. You know it, and I know it. He was I see the chat is lively this morning. I appreciate every one of you for being here, whether you agree with what I'm saying or not. Thank you. I look forward to the opportunity to try and convince you that you're wrong. But anyway, this wasn't spontaneous outrage. This was mob enforcement. And I haven't heard anything about a police investigation. I haven't heard anything from Soy Boy Mayor Jacob Fry or Tampon Timmy about any of this. Silence, radio silence, because they approve. They approve. This is what they want. Approved speech gets police protection, but unapproved speech gets fists, knives, and whatever other weapons of opportunity are available. You don't have to like Jake Lang. You don't have to like anyone on the right. But this crossed a civilizational red line. This is not how people in a civilized society handle disagreement. Once the mob decides what speech is allowed, the First Amendment is dead. The First Amendment is dead. The paperwork just hasn't caught up yet. Speaking of the First Amendment, let's get into this, because this is the biggest story to come out of Minneapolis so far. Oh yeah, this is the gash on Jake Lang's head after that wonderful mob decided to show him such grace. But anyway, the biggest story, what everybody's talking about, obviously, is Donna Lemonade leading a group, and he says he had no knowledge of it, whatever. Nobody with half a brain buys that. Leading a group of protesters into a church, mid-worship service. And let's before we get into that, let's take a look at some of these chats. Right-wing traitors are destroying America. Define traitor. I'm always interested in how people define these words that they sling around. BZ says, too bad leftists are Nazis and fascists. We know who they are. And I saw somebody mention January 6th. I had talked about January 6th earlier. They found everyone who was in the city, not even in the Capitol. They found everyone who was in the city on January 6th and paid them a visit. They can find these people if they want to. And so the question is, we know the authorities in Minneapolis don't want to. Will the feds? We'll see. That cool, refreshing drink, lemonade. And if you get that reference, we can be friends. Oh, boy. Anyway, getting back to the business at hand. So yeah, Donna Lemonade and his activist friends interrupted a church service with chanting, shouting, all kinds of nonsense, because they believe the pastor of this particular church to be an ICE agent. And I heard reports that he might be a supervisor for ICE at the Whipple facility. I don't know. I haven't seen any corroboration of that. And whether that's true or not is largely irrelevant, because they interrupted a church service. They broke the law. So whatever their motivation was, whatever impetus they thought they had, whatever justification they thought they had, is obviously not true. But yeah, let's take a look at this, because this is insane.
Today we had the honor to protest with Nikema Armstrong and the Racial Justice Network. Just like Jesus did, we went into that church and we flipped tables peacefully.
You said that you asked the Lord to pray for your house, to pray for you all to get your house in order. That is correct. Well, God understands the director of ICE insane law. Justice for
Renee Good! Renee Good! Renee Good!
You get the idea. And the guy, I have another video of the guy who whose voice you really heard there, but I'm not going to play it. It's not really important to the discussion. He's a moron. Wow, the chat is jumping. I'm not. Oh boy, I'm not even going to respond to some of it, but it is, again, thank you all for being here. Thank you all for sharing your opinions. I appreciate it. But they accuse this pastor of being an ICE agent. Like I said, we don't know if he is or he isn't yet. If anybody has corroboration on that, I'd be happy to hear it. But this was a religious sanctuary, and there was a point in time when just common sense said churches were off limits. And Donna Lemonade was talking to the preacher, and he mentioned that these people had a First Amendment right to protest. He doesn't. I know people say he knows the First Amendment. He knows what he said was incorrect. I'm not really sure that that's true, honestly. I'm really not. Because he's intent on talking about the First Amendment, and he's only referencing freedom of speech and freedom of the press. But the first part of the First Amendment, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or the free exercise thereof. It had to do with, first of all, it had to do with government, but he is infringing on their First Amendment right to freely exercise their religion. I mean, and Donald Lemonade is so stupid that I really don't think he knows that. I really don't think he knows what the First Amendment actually says. I think he, like a lot of leftists, just hear freedom of speech and off they go. So there was there was that. But then Donna found out after he FA'd that people took that seriously. And he tried to walk back and cover himself with a video talking about how he didn't know what was going on. He didn't know who these people were. Well, you know what? Let's just take a look. Because he's obviously lying, which we will prove right here in a second.
MAGA administration and the fake news MAGAs are losing their mind over something that's not even true. I had no affiliation to that organization. I didn't even know they were going to this church until we followed them there. We were there chronicling protests. Once the protest started in the church, we did an act of journalism. They're getting the operation together. Again, this is an operation that is secret, that they invited folks out. Can't tell you what is going to happen, but you're going to watch it live unfold here on the Don Lemon Show. There are for this reason, it may look like MAGA coded, but there's a reason they have so many white people here. I'm just going to be honest. It's because of the operation that they're doing today. It's important to have allies, as they said, white allies here. So
everything with this guy is always about race, which we are. We're gonna talk about that too in a second, but let's continue.
That is what I could say. I turned our camera off of them because they're giving some critical information here. But there we go. Everybody's ready to go. Let's go. Okay. Thank you guys for allowing me to be here.
Okay,
Thank you guys.
Okay.
All right. How are you?
Good.
Good to see you. We're on. We're not saying what.
Okay. He doesn't know who these people are. He doesn't know who this organization is. And he just came up to the organizer and gave her a hug and a kiss. But he doesn't know who they are. He had no idea. Come on.
It is what's going on, but thank you. Tell us why you're doing this.
So
this is Nakima Levy Armstrong. She's on the show
Nakima
on Friday.
Levy Armstrong, civil rights attorney, longtime activist here in the community. And, we protest and do activism in all kinds of ways. This is Operation Pull Up, more of a clandestine operation. We show up somewhere that is a key location. They don't expect us to come there. And then we disrupt business as usual. So that's what we're about to go do right now.
Disrupt business as usual. Of course. Of course. Rowan Knight says, why is it always about race for the majority of Democrats and less so with Republicans? Because with Republicans, conservatives, we were past this. We were past this. Nobody with an ounce of common sense really thinks anything about the race of someone. We want to interact with somebody one-on-one. We want to judge them by their actions. Whether they're Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, European, it doesn't matter. If you treat us right, we'll treat you right and keep it moving. But the left can't operate that way. So he's mad because Harmeet Dillon came out and said that they were going to charge him and everyone they could with violations of the FACE Act, with a Klan Act enhancement. And the irony, I posted this yesterday, the irony of charging a gay Black man who never misses an opportunity to talk about his Blackness, charging him with a violation of the Klan Act on MLK Day. The irony of that was delicious. Chef's kiss delicious. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was the most hilarious thing in a long time. And so Harmeet Dillon, she came out and she said that they were gonna charge her. The DOJ needs to go ahead and just swoop in and lock all these people up. Charge them with everything they possibly can, the whole truckload. Think about this. The previous DOJ, and I can't remember the Attorney General's name, labeled parents who objected to porn being distributed to their kids in school, boys and girls locker rooms, transing their kids without their consent. They labeled those parents as domestic terrorists. They put 2 grandmothers in prison for praying at an abortion clinic with violations of the FACE Act and a KKK enhancement, a Klan Act enhancement. Put them in jail for, which would have been the rest of their lives had Trump not gotten reelected and pardoned them. And so Harmeet Dillon, she's announcing that she's gonna charge him with these enhancements. And I could not be happier about that. This person says transing kids without their permission. You made that up. No, actually, I didn't. And if you paid attention, you would know that. Anyway, there was another incident in Minneapolis that I wanted to just touch on. Actually, no, before we get to that, this is Donna complaining to freak show, what's her name? Jennifer Welch. Jennifer Welch, who looks like that doll madame. And if you just look it up, just look it up, and you'll see that I am absolutely 100% correct. But this is Donna and Jennifer Welch. Just listen.
And there's a certain degree of entitlement. I think people who are, in the religious groups like that, it's not the type of Christianity that I practice, but I think that they're entitled, and that entitlement comes from a supremacy, a white supremacy. And they think that this country.
Everything with these people is white supremacy. What about that church said white supremacy?
Was built for them, that it is a Christian country, when actually we left England because we wanted religious freedom. It's religious freedom, but only if you're a Christian and only if you're a white male, pretty much. And so, yeah, I absolutely 100%, but it's an intimidation tactic. And, I said, I don't understand how I've become the face of it when I was a journalist.
You put yourself as the face of it. You absolute moron.
I do understand that. I'm the biggest name there.
The biggest name. Oh my God.
And I'm also, as I was on with my producers this morning, you and Kylie talk all the time. My producers were saying, I said, how did I become the face of this? And my producer said, Don, you're a gay Black man in America. And there's a certain degree of entitlement. I think people.
This guy. Just. Oh, he can't help himself. He is leveraging every possible woke, intersectional piece of garbage that he possibly can to try and weasel out of this, but it's not going to work. But like I said, something else happened. And I thought I had it lined up. Yeah, here we go. Nick Sorter, who is an independent journalist, who's been on the ground in Minneapolis chronicling a lot of this nonsense. He was attacked, and it was caught on video. So we're not going to play the whole thing, but check this out.
What did she just do?
Oh shit. Okay, it's okay.
Somebody had just ripped the camera that he had out of his hand.
She took Nick's camera. She just stole Nick's camera.
Now, he could have been seriously hurt right here. It was $1,000 camera. I almost don't blame him, but.
No, give him the camera! Give him the camera!
Just tell her to give him the camera back.
Give him the camera!
What happened, Nick?
They just stole my camera.
Right out of your hand while you're in the car?
That's what the fuck you wanted, right? That's what the fuck you wanted, right? That's what you did. Man, listen, motherfucker, you better get the fuck up out of here.
My daughter.
You fucking coward. Motherfucker, you a coward, bitch.
You have to leave.
You a fucking coward. Get robbed, you motherfucker. Get the fuck up out of here. Bitch. You fucking coward. You a fucking coward, motherfucker. Nobody motherfucker, you trying to incite that shit. Nobody stepped in. Get the fuck up out of here, bro. $1,000 worth of equipment. Fuck you, bitch.
Did you call that? Did anybody call 911?
Now, he posted later that they called 911 and they asked him. I haven't called 911. I don't know anybody who has called 911 over there, but he said that they called 911 and they asked him if he was black, white, Hispanic, or Somali. What? He doesn't have a reason to lie, and it's very easily checked. So he's been pretty accurate with his reporting up to now. So I have a hard time believing that he lied about that. But that's what we're dealing with in Minneapolis. Wow, the chat is jumping. All I ask with the chat is that you be polite and respectful. If you can't do that, we will bounce you. But other than that, we welcome all your opinions. And we appreciate you being here. Yeah, the driver was identified, but she hasn't been arrested, and I honestly don't expect an arrest. Yeah. I mean, it's just oh boy. Anyway, I want to move on because there's a lot to get to. And we are, like I said, we were going to be hanging out in Minneapolis for a while. Minneapolis, as I said, is now, this is the final boss of progressive rule. Violence is now acceptable if it's against the right people. Targets for the violence are chosen based on their ideology. And if law enforcement acts, then they're part of the problem. They're the oppressors. And if they don't act, the mob is emboldened and they escalate their violence. And when the mob is elevated to the point where they're the law, the violence only increases and professionalizes. This isn't protest culture. This isn't protest culture. This is mob enforcement culture. And as far as I'm concerned, it is well past time for the Insurrection Act to be instituted and send in the troops and clean this mess up. Because other leftist cities are watching this, and they're seeing people get away with all kinds of violent behavior. They're learning what they can get away with, and they're getting away with a lot. They're getting away with a lot. This is no longer left versus right. This is order versus entropy, and this is good versus evil. Period. End of story. And one of the things that you have to realize, once violence is justified by ideology, it never stops at the original intended target. It never stops there. It will continue to eat itself. And cities like this, they don't fall immediately. They don't collapse at once. They collapse when the law becomes optional and order becomes chaos. All right. You know what? Let me go ahead and get a word in from our sponsor. And who is our sponsor today? Our sponsor for today's show is Patriot Mobile. And Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless carrier. And now more than ever, voting, as we have just seen, isn't enough. You need to make sure that your dollars, your resources go to companies that fight for what you believe in. And that's why we switched. We switched because we were tired of getting gouged by one of the big three. And Patriot Mobile, they don't just talk about the values that you believe in. They put their money where their mouth is and they back it up. A portion of every dollar goes to pro-life, pro-family, and pro-liberty organizations. So right now you can get a free month of service when you go to patriotmobile.com and use promo code Jackson, or call 972-PATRIOT and use promo code Jackson. Defend freedom with every call, every text, every month. Switch to Patriot Mobile today. patriotmobile.com/Jackson. All right, y'all. I am Big E, and you are watching or listening to the Mission Ready Men briefing right here on the SHR Media Network, where you can catch my good friend Sackhead Sean, who's in the chat with the Edge of Liberty, every Monday and Wednesday at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. The Reaver of Common Sense with Jersey Joe every Monday and Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. And BZ with the Berserk Bobcat Saloon every Tuesday and Thursday at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, which means he will be on tonight. So be sure to check him out and like and subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to all those guys' great shows. Pray for us that we have a huge, huge breakthrough. We are growing faster than I thought, actually. Last I looked, we were at 760. Maybe someone in the chat can tell me exactly where we're at. So thank you all for liking and sharing and subscribing. We really appreciate it. We want a huge breakthrough. We want to reach as many people as we possibly can. All right, now back to our regularly scheduled programming. And oh my goodness, 776. That is awesome. I absolutely love that. Oh, 767. So yeah, thank you all for sharing and subscribing. We really, really appreciate it. All right. One of the questions that I keep seeing that people ask a lot has to do with Christians and self-defense. And I see this. People don't generally ask me because they know my answer, but I see it in other comment sections and on other discussions, and people ask about, is it good for Christians to carry? And does trusting God, meaning that you just go around unarmed willy-nilly? And then one of the biggest ones is turning the other cheek. And modern Christianity has largely been cowed into passivity, not peace. And people tend to confuse holiness with helplessness. But Scripture doesn't teach that. Scripture teaches, or it does not teach defenselessness or helplessness. Culture teaches that. Culture has cowed the church into believing that. Just look at what happened in Minneapolis. Protesters storm a church, disrupt worship, intimidate the congregation, scare the kids. Where was security? Somewhere along the way, Christians were told and began believing that trusting God means outsourcing common sense. Nothing could be further from the truth. God explicitly defines himself as a warrior. Exodus 15:13, the Lord is a man of war. This is not flowery, metaphorical poetry in the Bible. This is a concrete description of God. And the Bible shows us many times where people take up arms for God's purposes. And he commands preparation and expects vigilance. 1 Peter 5:8 says, be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, walks about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. 1 Corinthians 16:13, which was one of the biblical inspirations for Mission Ready Men. Watch, stand fast in the faith, be strong, be brave. John 10:10, the thief does not come except to kill, steal, and destroy. In the Old Testament, Nehemiah, he was charged with rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem after a war with Babylon. Everybody got together and prayed. They set watchmen and then continued to work to rebuild the walls. Those watchmen all had swords. Other workers who were carrying loads and helping to build the wall wore armor. They were prepared. They posted guards. They trusted God, but they stayed armed and vigilant. So if rebuilding Jerusalem required armed watchmen, why would modern churches be any different? Especially, and this is in Minneapolis. It wasn't, what, 6 months ago, 5 or 6 months ago? Some lunatic, some trans lunatic opened fire on a church, killing children. This is not hypothetical. If prayer alone was enough, Nehemiah wouldn't have told all the workers to grab swords and spears. So the idea of trusting God versus taking responsibility is a false choice. It's a false dilemma. Sometimes God will fight for you. Sometimes you may see it, sometimes you may not see it. But sometimes God fights through you. And if he's going to fight through you, then you need to be prepared. When he was fighting for the Israelites, they crossed the Red Sea and he drowned the Egyptians that were after him. Nehemiah rebuilding, he fought through those armed men. David fighting Goliath, he fought through the unlikeliest of boys. Bringing it into modern times, seatbelts don't mean you don't trust God. Fire extinguishers don't mean you don't trust God. And security teams don't mean you don't trust God. And like I said, it was just 6 months ago, the Annunciation Church. Protesters didn't just accidentally storm this church. Evil didn't RSVP. It showed up uninvited and gained access largely unopposed. And the other passive thing that a lot of Christians have been led to believe is that Jesus did tell people to turn the other cheek, but he was not talking about he was not talking about being passive in the face of evil. In that context, he was talking about personal insults and persecution during ministry, not leaving your home defenseless, not violent intrusion. Exodus 22:2, if the thief is found breaking in and he is struck so that he dies, there shall be no guilt for his bloodshed. So if somebody breaks into your home and you shoot them and they die, that's not something to be celebrated, obviously, but that's also not something that God would condemn you for. If you just got on your knees and prayed while the intruder raped and killed your wife and daughter, he would condemn that because you abdicated your role as a man. Here you go with the holy roller nonsense, trying to justify your call for righteous violence. So you think Christians should just roll over and play dead. Well, my God does not roll that way. Sorry. Not sorry. Turning the other cheek does not mean surrendering your home, surrendering your family, does not mean letting mobs run over your worship service. Yielding to evil is not righteousness. It's abdicating your role, as I said, as a man. Passivity in the face of violence and evil is a moral failure that you will have to answer for. And what was going on in that church wasn't persecution for preaching the gospel. That was intimidation. That was an intimidation tactic. And unchecked intimidation will turn violent. And then what? My church, my old church in Texas, I was part of the security team. There were at least 3 guys during each service, sometimes more, and 2 sheriff's deputies. We were watchmen on the wall. We were vigilant. And if they had somebody like that at City's church, I doubt, and I don't want to pass judgment. I don't know what the security situation is there. There were no police officers, obviously. Maybe they were overwhelmed with numbers. I don't know. All I'm saying is it didn't appear that there was much resistance. And that to me is a question that needs answering. And think about it. Luke 22, when Jesus predicted his death and told Peter to sell his cloak and buy a sword, he was telling them to be prepared. He knew he was leaving. This was his last day on earth. He was leaving. And the disciples were now going to have to operate in faith in a hostile world. And James 2:20 says, faith without works is dead. And in a hostile environment, you could be too. And so he told them to sell their cloak and buy a sword. Peter showed them a couple of swords, and he said, it is enough. Because he knew he was about to die. Peter and the disciples had a mission that they needed to live to carry out. And they were going to be persecuted, and they needed to be able to defend themselves and defend the faith. Churches, Christians are not called to martyr themselves for optics. And shepherds, men, are supposed to protect the flock. Wow. Like I said, the chat is jumping. Yeah, we talked about that before. They're about to get charged with the Klan Act, and it is ironic. And I thought that the irony was absolutely delicious. Yes, correct. Absolutely correct. All right. Minneapolis, as I said a couple of times already, the final boss of progressive rule, a case study. We had people attacked, a church invaded, worship disrupted, believers intimidated, children terrorized. As I said, where was the preparedness? And if this guy, if the pastor is an ICE agent, and it turns out that there wasn't adequate security, that's concerning. That's concerning. Watchmen were set on walls to stand watch, keep watch over the people. And now churches, maybe this one, but definitely others, outsource their safety to Hope and Vibes or something. But here's the truth. Here's a hard truth that people need to wrap their minds around. Evil doesn't respect sanctuaries. Evil doesn't respect Christians. Mobs don't honor worship, as we just saw. And prayers, as important as they are, do not replace preparation. Christians are supposed to protect the innocent, defend the vulnerable, and keep the peace. But you can't keep the peace if you're not capable of stopping the chaos. Blessed are the peacemakers, but peace can only exist when there's someone strong enough to stop the mob. All right, we got a half an hour left, and there's a couple of things I want to get to. And which one do I want to go first? All right, let's do this. Since I saw a reference to it in the chat, I can't scroll up now and see it. One of the many things, one of the biggest things that we talk about here is the attempt by Islam to take over this country. And we're seeing it all over the country. I'm not sure how many, I don't remember how many elected officials, Islamic elected officials there are now. I know that, I think in this last cycle, something like 43 or something like that. But in Texas is really seeing the brunt of this. Texas and Florida. And Texas isn't ground zero by accident. Texas is, at least it was, I think it's been softened up a little bit, but Texas at one point was a very hard target, perhaps the hardest target. And if Texas bends and falls, then the rest of the country is really only a matter of time. And two case studies in this are a couple of Islamic lawmakers that have been elected, Salman Bahani and Suleiman Lalani in Texas. These are strategically placed lawmakers who have put forth legislation already pushing cultural normalization. They're not trying to outright pass Sharia law, although if they're successful in what's going on, the effect will be the same. They're seeking, they're framing some religious accommodations as equity and cultural observances, Islamic holidays and the like. They're trying to make those state recognized norms. And I blame Republicans, because except for the major metroplexes, Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, Austin, San Antonio, especially Austin, those places are deep blue, but every place else is red. And the problem is, for whatever reason, Republicans just refuse to vote. They voted for Trump, but when it comes to these other elections, state and local elections, they just shrug. And I don't get it, because we can see the effects of that. Now, maybe these cultural things that they're pushing now, maybe that will spur people to get off their butts and actually go vote. But they're pushing this incremental legal recognition under the banner of inclusion. Islamic governance is not going to happen in this country with guns and swords. It's going to happen with paperwork, with laws. And by the time that happens, it'll be too late. Texas, if Texas is conquered, it will be with committees and resolutions, and Republicans who refuse to vote will say it's no big deal. Because Texas has survived for a long time on this notion that they have of themselves that nothing like this could ever happen in Texas. And I know this because I lived there for almost 20 years. And they survived on that reputation for a long time. And that reputation is starting to crumble. And if they don't do something, it's going to be a disaster, not just for Texas, but for the country. This is about process. And you can see the pattern emerge wherever they get a foothold. First, they want cultural recognition. Then they want legal accommodation. And then it moves to moral intimidation. And then once they get all that, they get legal insulation from criticism. We had, not we, because I don't live there anymore, but they had They raised the Pakistani flag at schools in Texas. They raised the Pakistani flag at a state building in Texas. They want halal mandates framed as access. And there are already stores and restaurants that have these signs that say that they're halal compliant. And people have no idea. And individually, when you look at these things in isolation, it doesn't really trigger any alarms for people who aren't paying attention. And that's the point. And Western governments fall because they confuse tolerance with surrender. Christianity has historically restrained political power. People who subscribe to Christianity and a Christian philosophy and a Christian worldview, they restrain political power. They hold it back. But Islam is a political order. It combines religion, law, and state authority. They don't need Sharia law now. They just need you quiet. That's it. And excuse me, we can see it happen. We're seeing it happen in New York with Mayor Mamdani taking his oath of office on the Quran, which anyone who has any familiarity with Islam knows that oath means nothing. That oath means absolutely nothing. And we saw the lieutenant governor in Virginia, and Virginia is on the verge of total meltdown. But the lieutenant governor in Virginia is a Muslim, took her oath of office on the Quran. North Carolina, Nita Alam. She's not an elected official yet. She's running, and she's dismissing people's concerns as bigotry and Islamophobia. It's not really a phobia. Phobia is an irrational fear. And we know what Islam has done. We know what they're capable of. But this isn't defensive politics. This is a preemptive attempt at moral shielding. You question the ideology, you get labeled as hateful or bigoted or phobic. You investigate the motives behind things and you get accused of racism. You demand transparency and you're silenced, ostracized, or worse. What's happening in Texas is we can see that's after elections. This woman, Nita Alam, this is how they run cover during the campaign. But this goes beyond Texas and North Carolina. Florida, New York. I mean, state legislators, city councils, school boards, congressional seats. I mean, a lot of these politicians get their start on school boards and city councils. They all have progressive coalitions, Islamist adjacent advocacy groups, and identical rhetoric across the states, because this is a movement. It is a network, and they are on the march. And this is the red-green alliance that I've talked about before. The left doesn't care what the ideology is, as long as it destabilizes the West. They don't care. They will care once they elevate Islam into power, and then they start throwing their allies off of roofs. Then they'll care, and then it'll be too late. They call it diversity, representation. But Islam always demands submission. And I don't know if they think that because they're allies, that's not going to happen to them. Or they're just that stupid that they don't see it. Let's see what's going on in chat. I see the chat is jumping. And I see some nice conversations going on. I'd have to scroll all the way up and spend the rest of the show going through it. But thank you all for being here. Dark Omega, thank you. I appreciate that. Dark Omega says, subscribe because you're speaking facts, removing feelings from the equation, as they don't change the equation. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. Thank you all. Be sure to hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss an episode. And we will be sure to get you the best content we possibly can. All right, getting back to this, because we got about 15 minutes left. The reason why, I mean, it's happening all over the country, but one of the reasons why Texas is important is Texas is the cultural counterbalance. All the blue cities in the state notwithstanding, Texas is a cultural counterbalance to California and New York and Minnesota. It is a firewall of sorts against leftist federal overreach. And it is still the symbolic heart of American independence. Rugged individualism, something that Mamdani doesn't appreciate. That most leftists don't appreciate, because they want everyone dependent. But if they can normalize this in Texas, then they can normalize it anywhere, because it's already been normalized in places like California and in New York. But if they can do it in Texas and to a slightly lesser extent, Florida, they're going to see it as smooth sailing the rest of the way. And just remember history, or read history. Pakistan didn't become Islamic overnight. Iran didn't become Islamic overnight. Every one of them started with court. Every one of them started with normalizing the culture, legislatures, and then respect. And then before you know it, they took over. Every failed state thought it was too strong to fail right up until it did. So this ends one of two ways. Either Americans remember that not all beliefs, belief systems, ideologies are compatible with liberty and rugged individualism, and that pluralism requires limits, or criticism becomes illegal, dissent becomes hate, and law becomes theology. And people accuse Christians all the time of wanting a theocracy. Nothing could be further from the truth. We would love everyone to be Christians. We would like nothing more than that. But we're not going to put a gun to your head and say, become a Christian or die. But that's what Islam does. Oh, no, I take that back. They don't put a gun to your head. They put a sword to your neck. And you don't have to hate Muslims to be against Islam. I don't hate Muslims. Theology, but I don't hate individual Muslims. I have family members who are actually in that cult, unfortunately. I don't hate them. But you have to be able to, you have to love your country more than your comfort. And the time is now to push back, because if these laws pass and become, if they pass and harden into the culture, that window's going to shut. You don't wake up in a theocracy, you fall asleep in one. All right, we got 10 minutes left. I'll get to this one. I'll get to this one next time. We talked about one enemy in Islam. As BZ is fond of saying, China is our enemy, and there's some bombshells. He might even talk about this tonight, I'm not sure. But I will get to it next time we're together. There are reports that over 1 million Chinese nationals could be eligible to vote by 2030. So we will get into that next time. What I'm going to do now, since I don't have time to get into that, because I could go a long time on that one. Let's see what we can do and get you out of here on a slightly lighter note, and see what Twitchy has to say. Twitchy's always good for some humor. I saw something about Scott Jennings. Yeah. Let's take a look at Scott Jennings, because he was They are trying desperately to get Scott Jennings off of CNN. Julie Roginski posted some ridiculous screed about how he how he lies and this, that, and the other thing. And she posted it on X, and I commented and said that she's just butthurt because he continuously fact checks her lies and makes her look stupid. And he does. He makes them all look stupid. And that's why now there's this effort to get rid of him. And I think this one had, yeah. Oh boy. Yeah, let's check this out. Scott Jennings scoffs at Cameron Kasky's language limiting edict on saying illegal aliens. Well, they're illegal aliens. That's what the law calls them. But for some reason, they don't want to acknowledge that. So let's let's take a listen to what he had to say in this comment.
I recognize you haven't reviewed all the material
anymore.
And you have.
The percentage.
Who are you to tell me what I can and can't? I've never met you, brother. Listen, I can say whatever I want. They're illegal aliens, and that's what the law calls them, illegal aliens. That's what I'm going to call them.
Right. Listen, you can't say illegals anymore because ICE is directly targeting legal citizens of this country, and
No, they're not. If legal citizens get caught up in an ICE raid, it's because they're hanging out with illegal aliens. Period. That's it. And if they're criminals, then they're going to be hunted by the police. And if they're hanging out with illegal aliens who have criminal charges, then the chances are very good that they're criminals too. I mean, let's just be honest about it.
How are you going to enforce your edict on me, just out of curiosity?
Listen, I understand.
But just listen to his point about illegal.
No, I want to know why he gets to instruct
You're
my
changing the
speech.
topic.
Hang on.
I want to know.
You're making a point
making
about
an
the
emotional
people being
plea.
arrested. Go
I
ahead.
understand that your job is predicated on just getting increasingly more demented every single week, and that the audience comes back to see if perhaps you'll get...
Make your point.
Wow.
My point is that you're saying the word illegals, but
it's in
you
federal
don't
law.
even really know what's happening. Or actually, I think you do, and
Sure,
you're
I
just
do.
doing this on purpose. But
Yes,
the truth
because
is,
I want the law enforced.
they are not just targeting illegal immigrants.
They
They
are.
are targeting natural-born U.S. citizens.
They are not.
That is a fact. You
They are
cannot
not.
deny that. I mean, you can on national television.
They are
You deny
not.
facts all the time.
They
You've
are
done it a
not.
couple times in this very episode.
I still want to know how you're going to enforce your language
God's
edicts on me.
We'll take that up.
How are we going to enforce it?
We're going to take that up in the break. Coming.
Just, wow. Oh, these people are insufferable. Absolutely insufferable. Oh, Ryan. Oh, good times. Anyway. You got anything else good on let's see what else we got good on here before we get you out of here. I'm just laughing at the chat. Oh, I love it. I absolutely love it. Oh, yes. Yes. No, I actually did talk about that already. Never mind. Looks like Keith Olbermann's on Twitchy. What did this fool have to say? Let's take a look. Keith Olbermann, he's always good for a laugh. Oh, this is about Greenland. Trump has offered to protect Canada and Europe from Chinese-Russia nuclear attack over Arctic with new Golden Dome based partially in Greenland. They get missile defense for free. They should be thanking us, not tanking us. I haven't gotten into the whole Greenland thing. I understand why people are leery of that, wary of that, but it makes absolute perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. And Stephen Miller said the other day, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't have it in front of me, but he said something along the lines of, you don't have a right to land you can't protect, you can't defend, something like that. So Denmark can't defend Greenland. And I know that Germany and some other European countries sent some troops over there for some exercises or whatever, but I don't know why there's such resistance to us acquiring Greenland, but anyway. But Keith Olbermann says, Madam, you need to remember you're a moron, pot kettle. You believe in BS like golden domes, and traitors like Trump just go away and we'll pretend you didn't post this. You can say that about every Keith Olbermann post on X ever. He is, oh my goodness. And KT McFarland, I didn't realize it was a whole thread. She's, but you can check it out on Twitchy. Or X, she pretty much eviscerates him as usual, as he always gets eviscerated. Anything else? No, I guess that's it. All right, that is the show. We're not here to just bloviate. I am here to equip Christian men and spread the gospel of Jesus Christ and carry the banner of faith, freedom, and hope into the next generation. And if anything that I said matters to you, resonates with you, don't just watch, share it, share this episode, share the channel, bring other men into this fight. And if you want to wear what you stand for, head over to missionreadymen.com, click Shop 7 Armors, and check out all the designs we have over there that talk about bold faith, true grit, and unapologetic patriotism. And remember, when seconds count, the police are only minutes away, but the Lord is right there with you. So keep your prayers going up and your head on a swivel. God bless.